Tonight, we travel quietly into the ancient world, where the stars rest above wide dark waters and soft wind moves slowly across the land. The night is warm. The air carries dust, dry earth, and the faint smell of grain that was baked hours ago. Far away, beyond the fields and the sleeping animals, the dark ribbon of the Nile moves silently through the land. The villages are quiet now. The noise of the day has faded into stillness. Workshops have closed. Hands that worked from sunrise until evening have finally become still. Clay jars rest against walls of mud brick homes. Small oil lamps burn low and soft, throwing weak yellow light into narrow rooms. Somewhere nearby, a dog shifts in its sleep. Somewhere farther away, water touches the riverbank in slow and gentle sounds. And under this quiet sky, in a small home built from sun-dried brick, a child sleeps beside family members on woven reed mats spread across the floor. The child does not know what tomorrow will bring. But in truth, tomorrow will likely be much like yesterday. And the day before that. And many days before those. Because in this ancient world, children often entered lives that had already been waiting for them before they were even born. There were paths laid down long before their first steps. Long before they spoke their first words. Long before they opened their eyes beneath the warm Egyptian sun. Choice was often a quiet thing. Sometimes it barely existed at all. Life moved like the river itself, following familiar roads through the land. Children followed parents. Families followed tradition. Villages followed the seasons. And the seasons followed the river. The Nile gave life to almost everything. By day, it carried fishermen across calm waters. It fed crops. It brought rich dark soil onto the fields after flooding seasons. It connected towns and villages that rested along its banks. But tonight, under the moon, the river seems slower. Almost sleepy. Almost endless. Inside the home, the child shifts slightly during sleep. The room is simple. The walls are rough beneath wandering fingers. Small cracks run through dried mud brick. Baskets sit in corners holding grain and tools and folded cloth. Clay jars stand near the doorway. A small oven rests outside where bread was baked earlier in the day. The heat of daytime still lingers inside the walls. Ancient nights could be gentle, but heat often remained trapped long after sunset. Families slept close together, breathing slowly beneath darkness that carried little sound. Tomorrow would begin before sunrise. For children here, mornings arrived early. Very early. Before the sky turned gold. Before the river reflected sunlight. Before birds fully filled the air with movement. Morning often began with quiet footsteps and soft voices. Parents would rise from sleep while stars still remained above the desert horizon. Hands moved slowly in darkness. Sandals brushed across stone floors. Small flames appeared. Bread dough waited. Water jars were lifted. Animals began stirring. And children, even very young children, slowly opened tired eyes. There was little space between childhood and work. Not because families were cruel. Not because parents wished for difficult lives. Life simply demanded many hands. Food had to be grown. Grain had to be carried. Water had to be gathered. Fish had to be caught. Cloth had to be woven. Homes had to be repaired. The work never truly ended. And so children learned very early. Not through lessons spoken with many words. But through watching. Through following. Through repeating. A young boy might wake beside his father and walk with him toward the fields while morning shadows still stretched long across the earth. A young girl might sit beside her mother while grain was crushed into flour or bread dough was prepared for baking. Little by little, the movements became familiar. Hands remembered what eyes had watched. Bodies learned rhythms long before minds fully understood them. The child who carried a basket today might carry larger loads years later. The child who followed silently today might someday lead another child down the same road. Outside the village, dawn slowly arrives. The sky begins changing. Dark blue becomes softer. Then gray. Then pale gold. Cool air still rests over the land for a short while before heat begins its long climb. Workers move quietly along dusty paths. Sandals press into dry ground. Animals wake. Voices begin rising gently. The village slowly opens its eyes. Children walk beside adults carrying small baskets or clay containers. Some rub sleep from their eyes. Some walk silently. Some whisper to brothers and sisters. The roads are dry and uneven. Dust rises around moving feet. The smell of earth mixes with river air. Far away, palm trees stand quietly against the growing light. For some children, the fields wait. The life of farming followed patterns older than memory itself. Fields changed with seasons, but routines remained familiar. Seeds had to be planted. Water channels had to be maintained. Crops had to be harvested. Bundles had to be carried. Grain had to be stored. Children helped where they could. Small hands pulled weeds. Small shoulders carried light loads. Small feet followed adults across warm earth. The work was tiring. Even during childhood. Especially during childhood. As the sun rose higher, heat slowly wrapped itself around the land. Morning softness disappeared. Light became stronger. The ground reflected warmth back into the air. Sweat formed on foreheads. Workers slowed slightly beneath the growing weight of sunlight. Children felt it too. Heavy heat pressing against skin. Dust sticking to ankles. Tiredness arriving quietly. Sometimes they looked toward the river. Water often seemed cooler than the land around it. Fishermen moved slowly across its surface. Boats drifted beneath open sky. Children living near the Nile sometimes spent their days helping there instead. A fisherman's child learned different movements. Different sounds. Different routines. Early mornings beside water carried soft splashing noises and cool air before heat arrived. Fishing nets needed repair. Boats needed care. Fish needed sorting and carrying. The river smelled of wet earth and plants and moving water. Hands became rough from rope and labor. Feet became familiar with muddy banks. The Nile was gentle some days. Quiet. Calm. And then on other days, strong winds moved across the water. Still, life continued. Always continuing. Always moving. In another part of the village, a different child wakes in another home. This family belongs to craftsmen. The father works with stone, or wood, or clay. The child watches him every day. The workshop is crowded and warm. Dust hangs in sunlight. Tools rest against walls. Voices mix together with scraping sounds and steady work. Children here learn with their eyes first. Then with their hands. Very slowly. A father shapes clay. The child watches. A father cuts wood. The child watches. A father smooths stone. The child watches. Years pass quietly this way. The same motions. The same sounds. The same rooms. Until one day, watching slowly becomes doing. No grand moment announces the change. No ceremony. No special day. Only work continuing forward. Hands becoming larger. Movements becoming stronger. And childhood slowly becoming something else. The sun climbs higher. Heat deepens. The village breathes beneath bright skies. Children grow tired before noon. Bodies move more slowly. Eyes narrow against sunlight. Sometimes there are short moments of rest. Small moments beneath shade. A tree. A wall. A woven shelter. Children sit close together eating simple food. Bread. Dates. Onions. Maybe fish. Maybe beans. Simple meals. Quiet meals. Then work begins again. Days could feel long. Very long. Especially under Egyptian sunlight. The hours stretched beneath heat and dust. Children learned patience because life moved slowly. There were no rushing clocks. No sudden changes. Only sun crossing the sky. Only shadows growing and shrinking. Only the steady movement of daily life. And for many children, tomorrow already seemed visible. Not because they dreamed of it, but because tomorrow looked much like today. And today looked much like yesterday. Far above, birds circle lazily in warm air. The Nile continues moving beside villages and fields. And the child who slept beneath quiet stars only hours ago continues walking beside adults beneath the endless Egyptian sky. The afternoon settles over the land with a slow and heavy feeling, as though the day itself has grown tired. Heat rests over the fields and roads like a quiet blanket. The sunlight is bright and soft at the same time, washing the earth in pale gold. Even the air seems slower now. Dust hangs gently above the paths that connect homes, workshops, and riverbanks. Sandals continue pressing into dry ground, but footsteps have become quieter. Workers move steadily, though their movements have lost the quick energy of early morning. Children feel it too. The long hours of the day settle into their arms and legs. Small shoulders begin to ache. Eyes become heavy beneath the brightness of the sun. Sometimes a child wipes sweat from the forehead with the back of a dusty hand. Sometimes they pause for only a few breaths before continuing. Work was often measured not by clocks, but by light. As long as the sun remained above the horizon, there was usually something waiting to be done. In the farming villages beside the Nile, the fields stretched quietly toward the distance. Green plants moved softly whenever wind crossed the land. Water channels cut narrow lines through dark earth, carrying life from the river into growing crops. Children walked these fields so often that they knew every path without thinking. They knew where the ground became soft. They knew where stones rested beneath the dirt. They knew where birds gathered. They knew where shade could be found for a few moments when heat became too strong. A young boy follows his father between rows of grain. His feet are dusty now. Fine earth clings around his ankles and between his toes. The father says little. Many fathers in this world spoke through actions more than words. The child watches. The father bends to inspect growing plants. The child bends. The father lifts a basket. The child reaches for another basket. The father moves toward another section of the field. The child follows. There is comfort in repeated movement. Comfort in knowing where the next step will go. Days become familiar through small routines repeated many times. For children raised without much choice, life often felt like walking a road that had already been built beneath their feet. Not a road made from stone. Not a road marked by signs. A quieter road. A road made from expectation. A father had once followed his own father. A mother had once followed her own mother. Grandparents had done the same before them. The road stretched backward through years that no one alive could remember. And now another child walked upon it. Nearby, another family works beneath a woven shelter where some shade protects them from the strongest sunlight. A young girl sits beside her mother and older sisters. Stone grinding tools rest before them. Hands move in steady circles. Grain becomes flour little by little. The sound is soft and repetitive. Stone against grain. Stone against grain. Again. And again. And again. The work requires patience. It also requires strength. Even children learn it that many tasks look simple until tiredness arrived. The girl's arms have grown stronger over the years. Not because anyone planned it. Not because someone announced that today would begin training. Life itself slowly shaped people. Hands changed. Muscles changed. Bodies adapted to labor little by little. The girl's mother speaks quietly while working. Not long stories. Not long lessons. Only small things. Simple reminders. Small observations. Words about grain. Words about weather. Words about tomorrow. Children often learned in this quiet way. Knowledge moved gently from one person to another. Not through books for most families. Not through written lessons. But through long afternoons beside working hands. Nearby, warm wind drifts through the village. It carries familiar smells. Baking bread. Dry earth. River water. Animals resting beneath shade. Smoke from cooking fires. Children knew these smells as well as they knew their own homes. Smells marked the rhythm of life. Morning had one feeling. Afternoon had another. Night carried its own quiet scent too. In the workshops near village roads, children moved among adults who shaped the objects people used every day. Potters pressed wet clay into forms that would someday become jars and bowls. Woodworkers smoothed rough pieces into useful shapes. Stone workers chipped and scraped beneath hanging clouds of dust. The rooms were warm. Often crowded. Light entered through openings in walls and roofs, creating bright lines across the floor. Tiny particles floated through those beams of sunlight. Children sometimes watched them while adults worked. For a moment their eyes followed the dust floating in the air. Upward. Downward. Slowly drifting. Small moments like this appeared during long work days. Tiny pauses. Quiet wandering thoughts. Children still remained children, even within lives filled with labor. A child carrying tools might pause to watch birds pass overhead. A child walking beside the river might stop for a moment to look at fish beneath the water. A child sitting outside a home might draw lines in dirt with a finger while waiting for another task. The world still held small curiosities. Even quiet ones. Even ordinary ones. As afternoon continues, shadows slowly begin stretching across the earth. Heat still lingers, but its grip starts loosening. Workers notice the change before they speak of it. Bodies notice. Skin notices. The air begins to soften. Children notice it too. Movements become slightly lighter. Breathing feels easier. The long day begins slowly leaning toward evening. Along the Nile, fishermen pull boats toward shore. Water reflects sunlight like moving gold. Gentle ripples spread beneath the boats. Children help pull ropes and carry baskets. Fish flash silver in fading light. The river remains calm. Always moving. Always breathing quietly beside the lives built around it. One young child walks along the riverbank carrying something small. Not much weight. Only enough for small hands. The child looks across the water, perhaps wondering what exists beyond the opposite shore. Perhaps wondering nothing at all. Children without choices still had thoughts that wandered. Still had quiet dreams. Still had questions. But many of those questions often remained inside them. Because life moved steadily onward. There was always another morning waiting. Another field. Another task. Another road to walk. As evening approaches, people begin returning toward their homes. Dust rises around tired feet. Voices drift through warm air. Animals move slowly toward resting places. Children walk beside parents and brothers and sisters. The day's labor now rests inside their muscles. Arms feel heavy. Legs feel tired. Hands ache softly. Yet there is also a feeling that comes after long work. A feeling of finally slowing down. Of finally reaching home. Mud brick houses stand quietly beneath the lowering sun. Their walls glow warm shades of orange and gold. Children enter familiar doorways. Clay jars wait in corners. Reed mats rest on floors. Cooking fires begin sending smoke upward into evening air. Meals are simple. Bread torn by hand. Vegetables. Fish if the family has some. Dates. Beans. Children sit close beside family members. The room feels smaller with everyone gathered together. But small spaces also carried warmth. Voices stay gentle. The day slowly releases its hold. Outside, the sky changes colors. Gold becomes orange. Orange becomes deep red. Then softer shades begin spreading across the horizon. The desert wind cools little by little. Birds disappear toward resting places. The Nile darkens. And somewhere, not far away, a child leans quietly against a mud brick wall while watching the evening arrive over ancient Egypt. Evening settles slowly over the village, arriving so gently that few people notice the exact moment it begins. The brightness of day simply becomes softer. The sharp edges of sunlight fade from walls and roads. Shadows stretch farther across the earth until they begin joining together. The heat that sat over the land all afternoon starts to loosen its hold. Warm air still remains, but now a softer breeze drifts from the river. Children feel it against tired faces. Workers feel it against tired shoulders. After many hours beneath the sun, even a small wind can feel kind. The village changes during these hours. Daytime villages and evening villages almost seem like different places. Earlier, roads carried movement and labor. Workshops echoed with tools scraping stone and shaping wood. Voices mixed with the sounds of animals and work and footsteps. Now the noise slowly fades. Work is ending. Hands are becoming still. People return home carrying baskets, tools, bundles of reeds, or small clay jars balanced carefully against their bodies. Children walk beside them. Their feet drag a little now. Dust covers ankles and sandals. Hair carries the smell of sun and earth. Small muscles ache quietly beneath the skin. But home is near. And home, even when simple, often carried its own comfort. Mud brick walls still hold warmth from the day. Low doorways open into familiar rooms where woven mats rest against the floor and baskets sit in corners. The walls are rough beneath wandering fingers. Clay jars stand quietly where they always stand. Nothing has changed. Many things rarely changed. Children raised in this world lived among routines so steady that life could almost feel like the turning of seasons. Wake. Work. eat, sleep, wake again. Yet inside those repeating days, small moments lived quietly. A child enters the home and sits near the doorway. For a moment, there is nothing to carry. Nothing to lift. Nothing to clean. Only sitting. Only resting. The child watches evening light reach across the room. Dust floats lazily through narrow beams of fading sunlight. Outside, voices drift through the air. Nearby families prepare food. The smell of baking bread slowly spreads through the village. Warm bread carried a scent that reached almost everywhere. Simple food often tasted best after long work. Hands tear pieces apart. Steam rises softly. Children sit beside parents and brothers and sisters. Some speak quietly. Some remain silent. Some are simply too tired for many words. Tiredness has its own kind of silence. Not an empty silence. A full silence. A silence made from long hours and heavy sunlight and aching muscles. Outside, cooking fires send thin ribbons of smoke upward into the evening sky. The smoke rises slowly and disappears into deepening blue. The village continues breathing in gentle rhythms. A baby cries somewhere for a few moments before becoming quiet again. A goat shifts beside a wall. Soft footsteps move across stone. A clay bowl touches another bowl with a quiet sound. Small sounds. Ordinary sounds. The sounds of people simply living. For children, evenings sometimes held the calmest moments of the day. Morning belonged to work waiting ahead. Afternoon belonged to heat and labor. But evening rested in between. A small space before sleep arrived. Some children sat near older family members while stories were shared. Not grand stories every night. Not stories of kings and palaces. Often the stories were smaller. Stories about people nearby. Stories about floods from years ago. Stories about animals. Stories about relatives no longer living. Stories repeated many times. Children heard some of them again and again through the years. And perhaps they did not mind. There is comfort in familiar things. Comfort in hearing words that always arrive in the same order. Comfort in knowing what comes next. Children raised without much choice often lived among familiar patterns. Patterns surrounded them everywhere. The river flooded. The river lowered. Seeds were planted. Grain was harvested. Children became adults. Adults became old. Life moved in circles. Quiet circles. Gentle circles. Beyond the homes, beyond the roads and fields, the Nile continues moving through darkness. Even now it does not stop. Boats tied along riverbanks rock slightly against the water. The sounds are soft. Wood touching water. Rope shifting. Gentle splashes. Children living near the river knew these sounds well. They fell asleep hearing them many nights. The Nile was never far away. It fed villages. It fed fields. It fed lives. And in return, lives gathered beside it year after year. Night deepens a little more. Stars begin appearing overhead. One by one. Quietly. Ancient skies often felt endless. Without bright lights across the land, darkness carried a different feeling. The stars seemed closer somehow. More numerous. More alive. Children sometimes looked upward while sitting outside their homes. Perhaps they wondered about those lights above them. Perhaps they simply watched. Perhaps tired eyes slowly closed before questions could even form. A young child leans against a parent's shoulder. The day's labor has settled deeply into small bones and muscles. Heavy eyelids begin blinking more slowly. Voices around a child become softer, more distant. Sleep approaches gradually. Not suddenly. Slowly. Very slowly. Nearby, another family sits outside their home enjoying cooler evening air. The father spent the day working with stone. Dust still rests lightly across his skin. His hands are rough and worn from years of labor. Beside him sits his child. Still young. Still small. But already learning. Already watching. Already beginning to understand the quiet road waiting ahead. One day the child may sit where the father sits now. One day rough hands may replace small hands. One day another child may sit nearby and watch. No one announces these things. No one needs to. Life itself speaks softly enough. The stars continue spreading across the sky. Night air grows cooler. Cooking fires begin fading one by one. The village becomes quieter. And children, tired from long hours beneath the Egyptian sun, slowly drift toward sleep while the dark Nile moves gently through the ancient land. Night settles more deeply now, and the village seems to fold itself into rest. Darkness fills the spaces between homes and along the narrow dusty paths. The last traces of sunlight have long disappeared beyond the horizon, leaving only starlight and the small glow of oil lamps that still flicker here and there. The air feels different at night. The heavy heat of the day has softened. A cooler breeze moves quietly across the land and slips through open doorways. It brushes against mud brick walls and woven mats. It carries the scent of river water, dry reeds, and distant earth that has slowly released the warmth it held all afternoon. Inside the homes, families prepare for sleep. Children lie close beside parents, brothers, sisters, and grandparents. Space is often shared. Rooms are often small. There may be little separation between one sleeping place and another. Reed mats rest across hard floors. Folded cloth becomes a pillow. A blanket may cover tired bodies when cooler seasons arrive. For many children, sleep comes quickly. Work has a way of pulling sleep toward the body. Heavy eyelids do not argue for long after a full day beneath the sun. But before sleep fully arrives, small thoughts sometimes drift through young minds. Children everywhere have always carried quiet thoughts into the night. Perhaps a child remembers birds flying over the fields earlier that day. Perhaps the memory of river water returns. Perhaps there is curiosity about tomorrow. Perhaps there is no thought at all, only pleasant tiredness. Outside, the village grows still. The sounds of labor have disappeared entirely now. No grinding stones. No scraping tools. No footsteps carrying baskets. No voices calling from roads. Only smaller sounds remain. A distant animal shifting in the darkness. Wind touching palm leaves. Water moving gently along the Nile. The quiet feels wide. Ancient nights often carried a silence that people today might find almost surprising. Without many lights, without busy roads, without constant movement, darkness itself seemed larger. The world became slower. The land became softer. The sky seemed endless. Hours pass. The moon travels slowly overhead. The Nile continues its long journey through Egypt, just as it always has. Its waters do not rest. Even in darkness the river moves quietly beside sleeping villages. And then, little by little, the night begins changing again. Not suddenly. Not all at once. The deepest part of night slowly gives way to the first small signs of morning. Far above the eastern horizon, darkness softens just slightly. Stars begin fading. Only a little. The air becomes cooler for a short time before sunrise. Many people still sleep, but some are already beginning to stir. A fisherman opens tired eyes. A baker rises slowly. A farmer shifts beneath blankets and sits up. Another day waits outside. For children, morning often arrived before they wished it would. Sleep still rested heavily behind their eyes. Bodies still wanted warmth and stillness. But life moved according to work, and work followed the sun. Inside one small home, a child slowly wakes. At first there is only blinking. Only stillness. Eyes adjusting to faint light entering through the doorway. Nearby, family members move quietly around the room. Someone lifts a clay jar. Someone folds cloth. Someone steps outside. The child hears these familiar sounds and already understands what they mean. Morning has returned. Again. The same morning in many ways. Yet not exactly the same. No two mornings are ever truly identical. The smell of air changes. The shape of clouds changes. The sound of birds changes. Even familiar routines carry small differences hidden inside them. The child sits up slowly. Hair is tangled from sleep. Hands rub tired eyes. For a few moments there is only sitting and waking. Then the day begins. Outside, dawn spreads gradually across the sky. The horizon glows with pale color. Blue becomes gray. Gray becomes soft gold. The village slowly opens its eyes. Smoke rises from cooking fires. Animals begin moving. Birds call from trees and rooftops. The roads that rested in silence only hours ago begin carrying footsteps again. Children step outside into cool morning air. For a brief time, before the sun climbs high, the world feels gentle. Very gentle. The earth has not yet grown hot beneath their feet. The light is soft. Shadows stretch long across the ground. Many children enjoyed these moments without even realizing it. Because childhood often notices comfort without stopping to name it. A young boy walks beside his father toward the fields. They say very little. Dust shifts beneath their sandals. Morning air carries the scent of wet riverbanks and growing plants. The boy has walked this road many times before. He knows every turn. He knows every stone. He knows where the path narrows and where it opens again. Soon they reach the fields. The Nile has done its work once more. Water has fed the land. Dark soil rests beneath growing crops. Workers begin gathering across the fields as sunlight slowly strengthens. The boy watches his father carefully. Not because anyone tells him to. Because children often watch naturally. The father bends to inspect the earth. The boy bends too. The father lifts tools. The boy reaches for smaller ones. No lessons are announced. No classroom waits nearby. The field itself becomes the lesson. The morning itself becomes the teacher. And as sunlight rises higher over ancient Egypt, another day quietly unfolds along the roads, workshops, homes, and riverbanks that have shaped countless lives before these small feet ever touched the earth. Morning grows steadily brighter across the land, and the soft gold light of dawn slowly spreads over the Nile and the fields beside it. The coolness that arrived during the night still lingers for a little while longer. It rests gently on the earth before the sun begins climbing higher into the sky. For now, the day still feels calm. Birds move through the pale morning light, crossing over fields and rooftops. Palm trees stand quietly beside the riverbanks, their shadows long and stretched across the ground. Thin smoke rises from cooking fires near village homes and drifts lazily into the air. Children walk along the roads once again. Small sandals press into familiar dust. Some carry baskets. Some carry tools. Some simply walk beside parents whose steps already know where to go. For many children, there is no question waiting in the morning. No wondering about what work the day will bring. The answer has often been known for years. Perhaps even before birth. The son of a fisherman may slowly become a fisherman. The daughter of a baker may spend long hours near ovens and grain. The child of a stone worker may grow familiar with dust and tools and rough hands. Life often unfolded like water following channels already cut into the earth. Quiet paths. Expected paths. Paths walked by many feet before. Still, children did not wake each morning thinking about these things. Children rarely sit beneath the sky wondering about the shape of their whole future. Instead, they think of smaller things. The feeling of morning air. The taste of bread. The ache in tired legs. The sound of birds. The warmth of sunlight beginning to touch their faces. A young girl walks with her mother through the village carrying a small basket. The basket is light enough for her to carry, though her arms already know the feeling of work. She walks close beside her mother, matching each step along the dusty road. Morning light rests on the walls of mud-bricked homes. The homes glow softly beneath the sun. Doorways stand open. Voices drip from inside. Some families are already eating simple meals before beginning work. Others are preparing tools and gathering supplies. The village breathes in slow and familiar rhythms. The girl knows these roads very well. She has walked them many times. She knows where stones sit near the edges of the path. She knows which corners hold shade during the afternoon. She knows where dogs sometimes sleep near walls. Children notice small details adults sometimes forget. Their eyes move naturally toward little things. Toward insects crossing the ground. Toward birds resting on rooftops. Toward strange shapes in clouds. Toward river water sparkling in the distance. For a few moments, the girl watches sunlight dance across a clay jar sitting outside a doorway. The reflected light shifts as someone walks past. She watches quietly. Then her mother continues walking. And the girl follows. The moment passes gently. Many moments in childhood pass this way. Small. Simple. Forgotten by nearly everyone except time itself. Near the workshops, the village begins growing louder. Not loud in a harsh way. Only fuller. More alive. Stone tools scrape against surfaces. Wood shifts beneath working hands. Voices rise and fall. Footsteps move in and out of doorways. Children helping in these places spend many hours among sounds that become ordinary to them. A child entering a workshop may already know the smell waiting inside before reaching the doorway. Dust. Clay. Wood. Warm air. Sweat. Smoke. Sunlight enters through openings above and falls across floors in long bright lines. The day slowly continues forward. Children sit beside adults and watch. Watching was one of the oldest lessons in the world. No one announces that learning has begun. Learning simply happens. Eyes follow hands. Hands remember movements. Movements become habits. Habits slowly become life. A young boy sits near his older brother inside a pottery workshop. Clay rests beneath their hands. The older brother shapes it carefully. Slowly. Steadily. The younger boy watches every movement. The turning of hands. The pressure of fingers. The smooth rising shape of wet clay. The younger child says very little. He simply watches. Years from now he may not remember this exact morning. He may not remember the warmth in the room, or the sunlight crossing the floor, or the sounds outside the doorway. But his hands may remember. Hands often carry memories long after minds forget. Outside, the sun continues climbing. Its warmth begins spreading over roads and rooftops. Morning coolness slowly retreats. Shadows shorten little by little. The air grows heavier. Workers notice it. Children notice it. Everyone notices it. Soon the stronger heat will arrive. Soon the bright Egyptian day will settle fully over the land. But not yet. For now there is still a softness remaining in the air. Near the Nile, fishermen move across the water beneath open sky. Boats glide slowly through gentle currents. Water touches wood with quiet sounds. Children helping near the river lift ropes and carry baskets along the shore. Some pause briefly to look across the wide water. The river stretches beyond what their eyes can easily hold. Its surface shifts and sparkles beneath morning light. The Nile always seems to be moving and resting at the same time. Always changing. Always familiar. Children growing up beside it knew its moods. They knew its smells. They knew the feel of damp earth beneath bare feet. They knew the sound of small waves touching the shore during quiet mornings. The river became part of memory itself. And above it all, the sun rises higher and higher over ancient Egypt, while countless children continue stepping quietly along roads that feel as old as the land beneath them. The morning slowly unfolds into the middle hours of the day, almost without anyone noticing exactly when the change arrives. The gentle coolness that rested over the land begins to fade little by little. Sunlight grows stronger. Shadows pull closer beneath people and trees. The earth itself starts giving back the warmth it has gathered. Children walking beside parents and older brothers and sisters can feel the change. The air feels heavier now. The tops of their heads grow warm beneath the sun. Dust clings to skin and settles along their ankles. The roads that felt cool earlier now hold a quiet heat. Still, the work continues. It usually continues. In ancient Egypt, life often moved with a steady rhythm that did not pause for tiredness very often. Fields still needed care. Grain still needed carrying. Clay still needed shaping. Nets still needed mending. The day simply kept moving forward. A young boy walks along a narrow path beside irrigated fields. Water travels through shallow channels cut carefully into the earth. The water moves slowly, almost lazily, reflecting bright pieces of sky above. He watches it while walking. Children often watched water. The Nile and its many channels carried life across the land, and water had a quiet way of holding attention. Sunlight dances on its surface. Small ripples appear and disappear. Tiny insects skim across it. For a few moments, the boy forgets the warmth of the day. He watches a bird land near the edge of the water. The bird stands still. Then suddenly it moves. Quickly. Then stillness again. The boy continues watching until a voice calls him gently. Not harshly. Not loudly. Simply reminding him that work is waiting. And so he looks away and continues walking. Many moments of childhood were like this. A brief pause. A wandering thought. A curious glance. Then footsteps returning to familiar routines. Nearby, women and children work together preparing grain for food that will feed families later. Hands move through practiced motions. Grain is sorted and cleaned. Flour is prepared. Clay ovens wait nearby. The work is steady. Rhythmic. Stone touches grain. Hands lift baskets. Voices drift quietly. Children learn these motions little by little. At first they only watch. Then they help with smaller tasks. Then years pass quietly. And one day they realize their hands already know what to do. There is no clear line separating childhood from adulthood here. No single morning arrives announcing that everything has changed. Life moves gradually. Like the river. Like the seasons. Like sunlight crossing the floor of a home. Small changes gather day after day until one day a child notices that younger children are now watching them. Near the workshops, the heat is becoming stronger. The rooms feel warm even in the morning. Dust hangs in shafts of light entering through small openings above. Stone workers continue shaping blocks beneath steady hands. Woodworkers scrape and smooth rough surfaces. Potters shape wet clay while wheels turn slowly. Children move around these places carrying tools and supplies. Some sweep floors. Some bring water. Some sit quietly observing. A child sitting near the doorway of a workshop looks outside for a moment. The road beyond is bright with sunlight. People move slowly through the village. Goats rest beneath patches of shade. Palm leaves shift softly in the wind. The child watches everything without speaking. Children often spend long moments simply looking. Looking at the world around them. Watching people. Watching animals. Watching ordinary things. Because ordinary things filled most of life. Not grand events. Not celebrations every day. Mostly roads. Mostly fields. Mostly work. Mostly simple moments stitched together like threads in cloth. As the sun climbs even higher, heat settles more heavily over the village. People begin moving more carefully now. More slowly. Bodies naturally save energy beneath strong sunlight. Children feel sweat gathering across their foreheads. Their shoulders feel tired. Legs feel heavier than they did earlier. The day seems longer now. The morning already feels far away. For some children, these middle hours of the day may feel endless. Time stretches beneath heat. Minutes move slowly. Tasks repeat. Lift. Carry. Walk. Return. Lift again. Yet even within labor, small comforts appear. A moment beneath shade. A drink of water. A cool breeze from the Nile. Simple things become important. A young girl pauses beside a water jar resting near a wall. She drinks slowly. The water feels cool compared to the warm air around her. For a few moments she closes her eyes. Only for a moment. Then she opens them again. Nearby, people continue moving through the village. Life continues its steady rhythm. Nothing has stopped. Nothing has changed. And somehow that sameness itself carries comfort. Children raised without many choices often lived among familiar patterns that rarely surprised them. Tomorrow would likely bring the same roads. The same fields. The same workshops. The same smells of bread and dust and river water. Yet children still laughed sometimes. Still wondered sometimes. Still watched birds crossing the sky. Still felt the pleasure of cool water on a hot day. Still noticed sunlight moving across walls. Because childhood always finds small spaces to breathe. Even inside difficult lives. Far away, along the Nile, the river continues gliding beneath the bright Egyptian sun. Boats move quietly over its surface. Water laps gently against reeds near the shore. And above the ancient land, the day continues unfolding slowly, carrying children and families through another familiar journey beneath the endless sky. The sun rises higher still, and now the middle of the day begins settling over the land like a warm and quiet weight. The brightness above ancient Egypt has changed again. Morning light had once felt soft and gentle, touching the world with pale gold colors. But now the light is stronger. Now it fills everything. It rests on rooftops and walls. It rests on roads and fields. It rests on shoulders and hands and tired faces. The village moves more slowly beneath it. Children notice this without thinking about it. Their feet lift a little less quickly from the ground. Their arms feel heavier after carrying baskets and tools. Even voices sometimes become quieter beneath the heat. The earth itself seems sleepy. Far across the fields, the air shimmers gently above the ground. The distant horizon almost looks like water moving in soft waves. Palm trees stand still against the brightness, and only the occasional wind brushes their leaves. A young boy walks beside his father carrying a small bundle of tools. The bundle is not very heavy. Not heavy for an adult, but heavy enough for small arms. His fingers shift their grip from time to time. His shoulders feel tired now. He has walked this path many times before. Back and forth. Again and again. Dust rises around his sandals. The dry road feels warm beneath his feet. His father notices the boy growing tired. He does not say much. Words are often few beneath the afternoon sun. Instead, he slows his own steps slightly. Just slightly. Enough for the child beside him. Sometimes care arrived quietly in this world. Not always through spoken comfort. Not always through long conversations. Sometimes care was hidden inside small actions. A slower step. A hand lifting something heavier. A shared piece of bread. A place beside the shade. Small kindnesses often lived quietly among ordinary days. Nearby, children helping in the fields continue their work beneath open sky. Rows of growing plants stretch across the earth. Dark soil lies beneath them. Water channels wind between sections of land like narrow ribbons. The work itself is not fast. It rarely is. Hands move steadily. Workers bend and straighten. Bend and straighten. Again and again. Children learn this rhythm early. Their bodies slowly become familiar with repetition. The work enters their muscles before they fully understand it. Somewhere near the edge of a field, a child pauses for a moment and looks upward. Birds cross the sky overhead. Only a few. Their shadows pass quickly across the ground and disappear. The child watches until they are gone. Children have always looked toward birds. Perhaps because birds travel where people cannot. Across rivers. Across deserts. Beyond distant hills. Toward places hidden beyond sight. The child wonders for a moment where they are going. Then the thought drifts away. Work waits. The day continues. Near the village workshops, warm air rests inside the buildings. The smell of clay and dust hangs quietly in the rooms. A young child sits beside an older worker shaping wet clay. The child's hands have begun learning small tasks now. Nothing difficult yet. Only little things. Passing tools. Bringing water. Smoothing rough edges. Watching carefully. Watching always. The older worker says very little. Hands continue shaping the clay. Round and round. Pressing gently. Turning slowly. The child watches every movement. The shape rises beneath careful fingers. A bowl. A jar. Something useful. Something ordinary. Children often learn through patience. Through many hours of seeing the same movements repeated. through seasons and years. Because one day, without realizing exactly when it happened, their own hands would begin repeating those same motions. Outside, sunlight fills the village roads. Some animals rest beneath narrow patches of shade beside walls. Dogs sleep quietly. Goats settle against cool places where sunlight cannot reach. Even birds seem quieter now. Heat changes the mood of everything. It slows the world. It softens movement. It asks bodies to rest when they can. And children feel this too. A young girl carrying grain walks with smaller steps now. Sweat rests lightly across her forehead. She brushes it away with dusty fingers. Ahead, near a home of mud brick, someone sits beneath shade beside a doorway. Just sitting. Just resting. For a moment the girl looks toward that shade. And perhaps, for a few quiet seconds, she imagines sitting there too. Doing nothing. Feeling cool air against tired skin. Listening to distant sounds. Children often carried simple wishes. Small wishes. Not grand dreams of treasure or glory. Sometimes only rest. Sometimes cool water. Sometimes an extra moment beneath a tree. Sometimes a chance to watch clouds moving overhead. The Nile continues its slow journey nearby. Even beneath strong sunlight, its waters move gently along the land. Boats drift across the surface. Fishermen pull nets. River birds stand near reeds at the water's edge. The river watches countless lives pass beside it. Children are born. Children grow. Children become workers. Workers become parents. Parents become old. And still the Nile moves quietly forward. The day stretches on beneath the Egyptian sky, and countless children continue walking familiar roads beneath a sun that has watched generations pass like soft ripples across water. The day moves onward with slow and steady steps, and the brightest hours of sunlight rest over the land. Heat lies across ancient Egypt like a heavy blanket that no hands can lift away. Roads glow beneath the sun. Stone walls hold warmth. Dusty paths seem almost to sleep beneath the stillness of afternoon. Even the wind feels tired now. When it comes, it moves gently. Slowly. It carries the smell of dry earth and warm reeds near the riverbanks. It slips between homes and across fields before disappearing again. Children continue moving through the day beside adults whose routines have become as familiar as breathing. For many children, life is a long collection of repeated moments. Wake before sunrise. Walk familiar roads. Work beside family. Return home. Sleep beneath the stars. Then begin again. Days often followed one another so closely that they almost blended together. Not because life lacked meaning, but because ordinary life has its own quiet rhythm. And most lives in the ancient world were ordinary lives. A young boy sits beneath the narrow shade of a tree beside the fields. Only for a short while. Only long enough to rest tired legs. Nearby, his father and other workers sit quietly as well. No one speaks much. The heat itself seems to ask for silence. Hands rest against knees. Eyes look out across fields moving softly in the warm air. Breathing slows. For a few moments there is almost nothing to do except sit and exist beneath the sky. The boy looks toward the distance. Beyond the fields he can see the Nile shining beneath sunlight. Its surface catches pieces of brightness and scatters them across the water. From far away, the river looks peaceful. Cool. Almost inviting. He imagines stepping into it. Feeling water around tired feet. Feeling the heat wash away. Children often found comfort in small thoughts. Simple thoughts. thoughts that arrived quietly and disappeared quietly. Nearby, insects hum softly in the grass. Birds move between reeds along the edges of the fields. A cloud drifts slowly across the sky. Then another. Then long stretches of blue again. Time moves strangely beneath afternoon heat. Minutes feel stretched. The day seems larger somehow. Longer. As though the sun has decided to remain in the sky forever. But slowly, almost secretly, the day begins changing again. The sunlight shifts little by little. Shadows that had nearly disappeared begin growing once more. At first the change is difficult to notice. No one stops and points toward it. No one announces that afternoon has begun leaning toward evening. The earth simply starts breathing differently. Children notice these changes with their bodies before they notice with their eyes. The heat eases slightly. Very slightly. A cooler feeling touches the air. Legs feel a little lighter. Movements become easier. The promise of rest begins approaching. Near the village workshops, children continue helping with simple tasks. Inside one warm room, clay jars rest in rows against walls. Dust floats through thin beams of sunlight. A young child carries a small tool from one side of the workshop to the other. The tool is held carefully with both hands. Small feet move across worn stone floors. The child has done this many times before. Perhaps hundreds of times. Perhaps more. At first, years ago, the work may have felt new. Strange. Interesting. But repetition changes things. What once felt unfamiliar slowly becomes ordinary. Children raised in lives without many choices often learn this very early. The road ahead did not always appear as a distant future. Often it simply appeared as tomorrow. Tomorrow looked familiar. Tomorrow looked understandable. Tomorrow looked much like today. A daughter watched her mother. A son watched his father. Younger brothers watched older brothers. Younger sisters watched older sisters. Life quietly passed itself from one set of hands to another. No grand speeches. No loud instructions. Only observation. Only practice. Only time. Outside, the village continues its slow breathing beneath the afternoon sky. Goats wander lazily between homes. A dog stretches beneath shade and settles again. Smoke rises from somewhere nearby where food is beginning to be prepared for evening. The smell drifts through warm air. Bread. Grain. Perhaps fish cooking near a fire. Children notice these smells immediately. Tired bodies always notice food. A young girl walking along a dusty path lifts her head slightly as the scent reaches her. For a moment, hunger rises inside her. Not sharp hunger. Just the quiet reminder that many hours have passed since morning. The thought of evening arrives. The thought of sitting beside family. The thought of resting tired feet. These small thoughts feel pleasant. Comforting. Far above, birds cross slowly through the sky, and beyond the fields the Nile continues moving through the ancient land, carrying water and memory beside countless lives that rise and rest beneath the same patient sun. The afternoon continues drifting gently toward evening, and the land slowly begins releasing the heat it gathered through the long day. The change arrives quietly. No sudden cool wind crosses the fields. No voice announces it. The sun simply begins lowering itself little by little across the sky. Its light changes first. The brightness softens. The hard white glow of midday becomes warmer now, touching the earth with shades of gold. Children notice this without stopping to think about it. Their eyes no longer narrow against the sunlight as much as before. Shadows begin stretching again beneath sandals and baskets and moving feet. The roads look different now. Softer. Calmer. A young boy walks beside his older brother along a path near the riverbanks. The dust beneath their feet has become familiar through many seasons. Their steps rise and fall in an easy rhythm. Walk. Step. Breathe. Walk again. Neither speaks very much. Words are not always necessary beside people you have known your entire life. Sometimes shared silence feels natural. The younger boy glances toward the Nile. Even after seeing it every day, he still looks. Children often continue looking at things adults stop noticing. The river catches the lowering sunlight and breaks it into 1,000 moving pieces. Small ripples travel across the surface. Boats drift quietly in the distance. The boy watches the boats for a moment. He wonders where they are going. Perhaps toward another village. Perhaps carrying grain. Perhaps carrying fish or clay jars or woven cloth. His thoughts follow the boats for a little while. Then footsteps pull his attention back to the road beneath him. Nearby, fishermen are beginning to return. Their boats move slowly toward shore. Hands pull ropes. Wood creaks softly. Water brushes against the sides of boats with gentle sounds. Children help carry baskets and sort catches from the river. The smell of water and fish and wet reeds fills the air. Some children have known these smells since the first years of life. To them, these scents feel as ordinary as warm bread or dusty roads. The world teaches children through repetition. Through seasons. Through years. Through mornings and evenings arriving again and again. Near the homes of the village, smoke begins rising into the air once more. Cooking fires awaken as families prepare for the end of the day. The smoke twists upward and disappears into the deepening sky. Children notice the smell quickly. Bread baking. Grain cooking. Simple meals waiting ahead. Tired bodies remember food. Tired bodies remember rest. A young girl helps her mother outside a mud brick home. Clay jars rest against the wall nearby. Woven baskets sit beside the doorway. The girl hands small things back and forth while her mother prepares food for the family. Their movements feel practiced now. Easy. Familiar. Hands know where things belong. Hands remember. The girl has watched these same motions many times. She watched while younger. She watches now. And slowly, quietly, the motions become part of her too. Children raised without much choice often grew into their futures almost without noticing it. Not because life moved quickly, but because life moved steadily. One day became another. One season became another. The changes were so gentle that they sometimes felt invisible. Nearby, other children move through the village roads. Some carry small bundles. Some walk beside family members. Some have found tiny moments of freedom before darkness arrives. A few sit near walls talking softly. Others watch birds crossing overhead. Others simply sit in the shade doing nothing at all. Doing nothing can feel wonderful after a long day. Even children understand this. Especially children. A warm breeze moves through the village. Palm leaves rustle softly. Dust shifts along the roads. Somewhere nearby, a goat makes a low sound before becoming quiet again. The world feels slower now. Softer. Evening is approaching. The long work of the day is beginning to loosen its grip. Above the village, the sky changes little by little. Blue deepens. Gold spreads farther across the horizon. Clouds, if there are any, catch the sunlight and glow quietly. Children look toward the sky sometimes during these hours. Not because they expect anything unusual. Simply because evening has a way of inviting people to look upward. And while countless families continue moving through familiar routines below, the Nile glides quietly through the ancient world, carrying the fading light beside children whose small footsteps continue along paths worn smooth by generations before them. The evening light grows deeper now, spreading slowly across the land like warm honey poured over stone and earth. The strongest heat of the day has finally begun to loosen its hold. Air that felt heavy only hours ago now feels softer against the skin. Children notice this change immediately. Bodies that worked beneath the sun all day seem to breathe a little easier. Shoulders relax. Steps become lighter. Even tired legs somehow find a little strength returning. The roads through the village are still dusty, but now they glow beneath the lowering sun. Mud brick homes shine with warm colors. Their walls hold orange light and long shadows that stretch across the ground. People continue returning home. Workers walk beside family members carrying tools and baskets that have become lighter now that the work is ending. Sandals brush softly against the earth. Footsteps move at slower speeds. No one rushes. The day itself seems tired. Near the riverbank, fishermen pull the last boats toward shore. Ropes tighten against wooden posts. Water moves around the boats with gentle sounds. A young child stands nearby watching. The child has watched this many times before. Yet watching never completely loses its quiet comfort. The boats rise slightly. Then settle. Rise again. Then settle. The river continues breathing in its slow way. The child listens to water touching wood. Listens to distant voices. Listens to birds calling as they cross the sky toward places of rest. Some sounds belong especially to evening. Children learn this without needing words. Morning has its own voice. Afternoon has another. Night carries different sounds entirely. The world changes its breathing as hours pass. Nearby, along the village roads, cooking fires have become more common now. Thin smoke drifts upward through the warm air. The smells begin spreading everywhere. Fresh bread. Cooked grain. Fish. Lentils. Warm food after a day of work. Children walking home notice these scents quickly. Their stomachs notice too. A young boy walking beside his mother lifts his head slightly as warm bread reaches him through the evening air. For a moment, tiredness feels smaller. Food waiting at home carries a quiet comfort all its own. Simple meals can feel like wonderful things after long labor beneath the sun. The boy walks a little faster now. Not much faster. Just enough for someone nearby to notice. The village itself feels different during these hours. Earlier, movement belonged mostly to work. Now movement belongs to returning. Returning to homes. Returning to families. Returning to rest. Children pass familiar places along the roads. A workshop where dust floated through sunlight earlier. A wall where dogs sleep during the afternoon. A tree offering shade during hot days. Everything feels familiar. Children raised in these villages knew every corner around them. Knew where roads curved. Knew where stones rested near paths. Knew which homes belonged to friends and relatives. Small worlds often become deeply known worlds. A child does not need a large world to notice details. The smallest places can hold endless memories. Near one doorway, an older man sits quietly watching people return home. His hands rest upon his knees. Years of work have left lines across his face and roughness across his hands. Children pass him and offer small greetings. Some slow their steps briefly. Some smile. Some continue walking. Children often move naturally between quiet moments and busy moments. One moment filled with movement. The next filled with stillness. Nearby, a young girl pauses outside her home before stepping inside. The sky above has changed again. She looks upward. The colors are softer now. Gold becoming orange. Orange beginning to deepen toward red. Birds move across the horizon as dark shapes against the fading night air along the rip. For a few moments she simply watches. Children have always watched sunsets. Not because anyone told them to. Not because they understood the passing of time in grand ways. Simply because beautiful things often ask us to stop for a moment. Even small children understand that feeling. Inside homes, families begin gathering together. Rooms slowly fill. Voices rise softly. Clay bowls are arranged. Bread is shared. Tired bodies settle close beside one another. The long day is beginning to close its eyes. Outside, the Nile continues moving beneath evening skies, carrying reflected colors across its surface while children of ancient Egypt return quietly toward homes where warmth, food, and rest now wait in the growing calm of night. Evening settles more deeply across the village now, and the last warmth of sunlight rests softly on the tops of walls and rooftops before slowly fading away. The sky above ancient Egypt continues changing colors with quiet patience. Gold becomes deeper orange. Orange slowly becomes red. Then red begins giving itself to softer shades of purple and blue. The day lets go gently. No one sees the exact moment when daytime disappears and night begins. The change happens too slowly for that. Children feel it instead. They feel it in the cooler air touching tired skin. They feel it in the slowing rhythm of the village. They feel it in their own heavy eyes and aching legs. A long day has settled into their bodies now. The work of morning and afternoon remains in their arms and shoulders. Dust still clings to sandals. Fine grains of earth rest against ankles and hands. Hair carries the smell of sunlight and warm air and the places they have walked. A young boy sits beside his family near the doorway of their home. The evening breeze moves through slowly, bringing relief after the heat of the day. He sits quietly. His legs are stretched out before him. For now there is nothing to carry. Nothing to fetch. Nothing to clean. Only sitting. Only resting. Across the village, many children are doing the same. After long hours beneath the sun, stillness itself can feel pleasant. Not empty stillness. Comfortable stillness. The kind that comes after effort. The kind that feels earned. Nearby, clay ovens continue releasing warmth from bread baked earlier. The smell remains in the air, mixing with smoke from cooking fires and the soft scent of river water drifting from the Nile. The smells of evening slowly spread through every corner of the village. Children knew these smells as well as they knew familiar voices. Morning smelled one way. Afternoon another. Night carried its own quiet scent too. Warm stone cooling after sunlight. River air drifting through darkness. Smoke fading slowly into the sky. The world seemed to change its face as each hour passed. Families gather close together now. Meals are simple. Bread broken by hand. Dates. Beans. Perhaps fish from the river. Perhaps onions or greens from nearby fields. Nothing grand. Nothing rare. Only food prepared with work and patience. Children eat beside parents and grandparents and brothers and sisters. Hands pass food from one person to another. Voices remain soft. Sometimes people speak. Sometimes they simply sit together. Silence between family members often feels different from silence among strangers. It feels full, warm, easy. Nearby, a young girl leans against her mother's side while eating slowly. The day has made her tired. Very tired. Her eyes blink longer now. Her body seems heavier than it did earlier. Sleep has begun arriving quietly. Not all at once. Just small signs. A yawn. A slower blink. A head resting gently against someone nearby. Outside, the village continues growing quieter. The sounds of work have disappeared completely now. No grinding stones. No workshop tools. No footsteps hurrying toward fields. Only evening sounds remain. A goat shifting near a wall. Palm leaves brushing softly together. Distant voices carried through cooling air. And beyond it all, the Nile. Always the Nile. Water moving through darkness. Water moving through moonlight. Water moving through countless lives. Children raised beside the river knew its sounds even when they stopped noticing them. The gentle movement of water became part of life itself. Part of memory. Part of sleep. Far above, stars begin appearing. First one. Then another. Then many more. Ancient skies opened slowly at night. Without bright lamps stretching across the land, darkness felt deeper. And the stars felt endless. Children sometimes looked upward during these quiet hours. Perhaps while sitting outside homes. Perhaps while lying beside family members preparing for sleep. Perhaps while carrying one final thing before rest arrived. The stars had watched countless children before these children. Countless lives. Countless footsteps. Countless quiet evenings beside the Nile. And still they remained above, shining gently over dusty roads and mud brick homes where tired children slowly begin leaning toward sleep beneath the soft and endless sky. Night settles farther across the ancient land, and the village begins sinking into a deeper quiet. The last colors of evening have faded from the horizon now. The sky above the Nile has become dark and wide, filled with stars scattered across the heavens like tiny points of soft light. The air feels cooler than it did only a few hours ago. Not cold. Just gentle. The kind of air that rests softly against tired skin after a long day beneath the sun. Children notice this feeling even through heavy eyelids. The warmth trapped inside mud brick walls slowly drifts outward into the night. Breezes move through doorways and small openings. Oil lamps flicker quietly inside homes, casting soft yellow light that reaches only short distances before surrendering to darkness. A child sits near the doorway of a small house. The child is tired now. Very tired. The day has stretched across many hours. Morning work. Afternoon heat. Long walks. Small tasks. Dusty roads. All of it rests quietly inside small muscles and bones. The child watches the night for a little while. Not because there is something exciting to see. Night in the village is simple. Peacefully simple. A few people still move through the roads. Soft footsteps pass nearby. Voices drift through the darkness for a moment and then fade away again. Somewhere a dog lifts its head and settles back down. Palm leaves whisper against one another whenever the breeze passes. And beyond everything else, the river continues speaking in its quiet voice. Water touching the shore. Water touching reeds. Water touching boats resting along the banks. The Nile never fully sleeps. Children who grow beside it learn this without realizing they are learning. The sounds become part of the world around them. Part of the air itself. A young boy lies beside his family on woven mats spread across the floor. There is little space between sleeping places. Brothers and sisters rest nearby. Parents rest nearby. Families often slept close together. The room feels warm and familiar. Safe. The boy stares upward for a while. His eyes follow shadows dancing softly along the walls from a nearby oil lamp. The shadows move gently. Slowly. The flame shifts. The shadows shift with it. Children often watch small things before sleep. Things adults no longer notice very much. Light moving across a wall. The sound of wind. The pattern of cracks in dried mud. The tiny details of familiar places. Sleep does not arrive all at once. It comes slowly. Very slowly. Thoughts begin growing softer. The body becomes heavier. Sounds become distant. Nearby, another family finishes the last small tasks of the day. A mother folds cloth and places baskets where they belong. A father checks tools that will be needed tomorrow. Not much speaking happens now. The day has taken many words already. Even conversations grow tired. Children watching these moments learn without being told. Tomorrow will begin again. Before sunrise. Before birds fill the sky. Before sunlight reaches the fields. And tomorrow will bring familiar things. Familiar roads. Familiar work. Familiar sounds. Children raised without many choices often lived inside lives that moved with steady certainty. The future did not always feel like a distant mystery. It often felt like the continuation of today. Another step along a road already beneath their feet. Still, even inside lives shaped by routine, children carried quiet worlds of their own. A child might remember birds flying over fields earlier that day. Another might think about boats drifting across the Nile. Another might wonder what existed beyond distant hills that seemed to touch the horizon. Small thoughts. Small curiosities. Gentle dreams. Children have always carried them. No matter the place. No matter the time. Outside, the stars continue spreading across the night sky. The village grows quieter still. One home after another becomes silent. Cooking fires fade. Voices disappear. Darkness settles gently around walls and roads and sleeping animals. And while families drift into rest beneath roofs of mud brick and woven reeds, the Nile continues its endless journey through the ancient world, moving softly beside children whose tired eyes slowly close beneath the quiet embrace of night. The night deepens gently over the ancient land, and silence settles more completely across the village. It is not a perfect silence. Ancient nights were never entirely empty of sound. There were always small noises resting inside the darkness. A distant animal shifting in sleep. Wind brushing softly against reeds near the river. The quiet creaking of wood from boats tied along the shore. The slow breathing of family members sleeping close beside one another. Small sounds. Soft sounds. Sounds that seem larger at night because everything else has become still. Inside the homes of mud brick and woven reed, children sleep beside parents and brothers and sisters. Oil lamps have burned lower now. Their small flames flicker weakly, and in some homes they have already gone dark. Moonlight enters through openings and doorways. Thin silver light stretches across floors. Across baskets. Across clay jars resting in corners. Across sleeping faces. The village itself seems to rest. The roads that carried so many footsteps earlier have become empty now. Dust lies undisturbed. Sandals no longer brush across the earth. Work has finally loosened its hold over tired hands and tired bodies. For a little while, everyone belongs to sleep. A young boy shifts quietly on his woven mat. Perhaps he dreams. Children have always dreamed. Dreams drift across every place and every age. Ancient children dreamed beneath the same stars that shine over distant lands today. Perhaps he dreams of standing beside the Nile. Perhaps he dreams of birds crossing a bright sky. Perhaps he dreams of running across fields without baskets or tools or work waiting ahead. Dreams do not always follow the rules of ordinary life. Even children raised along quiet and familiar roads carried worlds inside themselves. Worlds unseen by anyone else. Nearby, another child sleeps with one arm resting across a younger brother. Families slept close together, often sharing warmth and space within simple homes. There was comfort in nearness. Comfort in hearing familiar breathing in the darkness. Comfort in knowing others rested beside you. Outside, the stars continue their slow journey across the heavens. The moon climbs quietly. The Nile continues moving. Always moving. Always flowing beside villages and fields and sleeping homes. The river has watched countless nights like this one. Countless children sleeping beneath mud brick roofs. Countless families closing tired eyes after long days beneath the Egyptian sun. The Nile remembers none of them. And yet somehow it carries all of them. Its waters touch the same shores. Pass the same fields. Move beneath the same sky. Again and again through endless seasons. Hours pass slowly. The coolest part of night begins arriving now. Air moving through the village feels softer against walls and sleeping faces. The warmth trapped during the day has faded further. For a few quiet hours, before sunrise returns, the land rests beneath gentle coolness. Some people wake briefly. A father turns in sleep. A child opens heavy eyes for a moment and then closes them again. A mother adjusts a blanket over a sleeping child. Tiny moments. Tiny movements. Then stillness returns. Far away near the riverbank, a fisherman rises earlier than most. He sits quietly for a moment outside his home. The stars still remain above him. Darkness still covers the village. But work will return soon. Morning always returns. The fisherman already knows this. His hands know it. His body knows it. He sits silently and looks toward the Nile. The water is dark beneath the night sky. Gentle sounds rise from the shore. Soft waves. Moving reeds. The breathing of the river itself. Children living near the Nile often woke to these sounds and fell asleep to them again at night. The river became part of their days without asking permission. Part of memory. Part of childhood. Part of life itself. Slowly, almost too slowly to notice, the darkness begins changing again. Very far away along the horizon, the deepest black of night softens slightly. Not much. Only a little. Stars still shine. The village still sleeps. But somewhere beyond the distant land, another morning has already begun its quiet journey toward the children and families resting beside the endless waters of the Nile. The first quiet signs of morning begin arriving long before the sun itself appears. Night still covers the village, and most eyes remain closed. Most homes remain still. Most dreams continue drifting softly through sleeping minds. Yet the world has already begun changing. Very slowly. Very gently. The deepest darkness no longer feels quite as deep. Far along the horizon, a faint softness begins touching the edge of the sky. It is almost impossible to notice at first. A person would need to sit quietly for a long time to see it happening. And ancient people often did sit quietly. Life moved slowly enough for such things. Outside the homes, Cool air rests over the earth. Dusty roads feel calm beneath moonlight. Palm trees stand motionless. Boats tied along the riverbanks rock softly against the water. The Nile continues moving beside everything. Even now. Even before sunrise. A fisherman sits near the shore preparing for the day. His hands move quietly in the darkness. He checks ropes. He checks nets. He works from memory more than sight. Children who lived near fishermen sometimes learned these motions before they learned many words. Not because someone formally taught them. Simply because children watch. Children always watch. Years of watching quietly settle into memory. A young child sleeping nearby turns slowly beneath a woven blanket. The child's face rests peacefully against folded arms. Long hours of labor the day before have left deep tiredness inside small muscles. Children often slept heavily after days filled with walking and work. Morning had not yet called them back. Not yet. Inside another home, a mother wakes before the rest of the family. Very quietly she rises. Her movements are careful. Gentle. She does not wish to wake sleeping children. Oil lamps burn faintly. Their light touches rough mud walls and clay jars resting nearby. Outside, stars still remain overhead. But fewer now. Only a few less. The change is almost invisible. Morning always arrives slowly in this world. There are no clocks announcing it. No sudden sounds. Only the sky breathing softly into another day. The mother steps outside. Cool air touches her face. She pauses for a moment. Only a moment. Perhaps she looks toward the Nile. Perhaps she listens to distant sounds carried through darkness. Perhaps she simply enjoys the stillness before work begins again. Small quiet moments mattered. Especially in lives where many hours belong to labor. Nearby, another child begins waking. Not fully awake. Only halfway. Eyes open slightly. Close again. Open once more. Children everywhere know this feeling. That gentle place between sleep and waking. The place where dreams have not fully disappeared. The place where blankets still feel warm and heavy. The child hears soft movements nearby. Familiar movements. Clay jars shifting. Footsteps. Whispered voices. Morning sounds. Even with eyes closed, children learn to recognize them. The child already knows what they mean. Soon everyone will rise. Soon sandals will touch dusty roads again. Soon baskets will be lifted. Soon fields and workshops and riverbanks will call people back. The child remains still a little longer. Just a little longer. Outside, birds begin making their first quiet sounds. Only one at first. Then another. Then several more. The sky slowly changes. Dark blue softens. Gray begins spreading gently across the horizon. The stars fade one by one. Children living in ancient Egypt saw this happen thousands of times across their lives. Yet perhaps they rarely stop to think about it. Many beautiful things become ordinary when we live beside them every day. Sunrise. Birdsong. River water. The smell of bread baking. Children accept these things naturally. Like breathing. Like footsteps. Like tomorrow arriving. Nearby, a young boy finally sits up from sleep. His hair falls across tired eyes. He rubs his face slowly. Around him the home is beginning to wake. Family members move quietly. Someone steps outside. Someone gathers tools. Someone prepares food for the beginning of the day. The boy sits still for a moment. Only sitting. Only listening. Morning has returned once again. Another familiar day waits beyond the doorway. Another road already known. Another journey beside family. And outside, beneath the soft growing light of dawn, the Nile continues gliding through the ancient world while children slowly open their eyes to another day beneath the patient Egyptian sky. The dawn grows brighter little by little, and the village begins opening its eyes once again. Darkness retreats slowly across the land. The stars that watched over the night fade gently into the pale sky above, disappearing one after another until only morning remains. The air still feels cool. For a short while. This small part of the day often carries a softness that will not last long. The heavy heat waiting later has not yet arrived. The earth still remembers the quiet coolness of night. Children step outside their homes and feel it immediately. Bare feet touch ground that has not yet warmed beneath the sun. Small breezes move between homes and along the dusty roads. Birds call from rooftops and palm trees. The village begins breathing again. A young boy stands beside the doorway of his family's home. His eyes are still heavy from sleep. His hair still carries the untidy look of the night. For a moment he simply stands there. Looking. Listening. The world before sunrise often feels different from the world that arrives later. Calmer. Softer. Even familiar places seem quieter during these early moments. The roads that will soon fill with footsteps remain nearly empty. The workshops still rest. The fields still wait. The river moves beside the land in gentle silence. Children often notice these quiet moments without understanding why they feel different. They simply feel them. The boy watches smoke rising from a nearby home. Someone else has already begun preparing food. The smell of grain and warm bread slowly drifts into the morning air. The scent reaches him gently. Simple smells carried comfort in this world. Children remembered them. Remembered them without trying. The smell of bread meant home. The smell of river water meant the Nile nearby. The smell of dust meant roads and fields and long days beneath the sky. Nearby, his father steps outside carrying tools. The movements are familiar. Everything about the morning feels familiar. The boy has watched these same motions many times. Hands gathering tools. Sandals being tied. Water jars being lifted. Voices speaking softly. Morning follows patterns older than memory itself. Children raised without many choices often grew inside these rhythms like plants growing beside water. Days shaped them quietly. Days shaped everyone. The boy reaches down and lifts a smaller bundle waiting near the doorway. Not heavy. Heavy enough. His hands know where to hold it. His body already understands what the day expects. Nearby, other children emerge from homes as well. Some walk beside mothers carrying baskets. Some follow older brothers. Some yawn while rubbing tired eyes. The village slowly fills with movement. Dust begins rising once again beneath sandals. Voices drift through the cool air. Animals wake from sleep and stretch slowly near walls and shelters. Life begins again. Near the Nile, fishermen push boats toward the water. Wood slides softly against damp ground. Ropes shift. Water ripples outward. Children helping near the river walk along the shore carrying small supplies. Morning light rests across the water now. The river catches the first colors of sunrise and breaks them into pieces of gold and silver. A young girl walking nearby glances toward the Nile. Only for a moment. Her eyes follow the light dancing across the surface. Children often pause for small things. Even during busy mornings. Especially during busy mornings. A bird landing beside the shore. Sunlight moving through water. Clouds changing shape overhead. Small moments appear quietly and disappear quietly. The world offers them and then moves on. Near the fields, workers gather beneath skies growing brighter every minute. The coolness of dawn still remains for now. Soon the warmth will return. Soon shadows will shorten. Soon tiredness will once again settle into arms and shoulders. But morning has not reached that point yet. For now there is still softness in the air. Still gentleness. Still the feeling of a day that has only just begun. Children walk beside parents along roads worn smooth by countless footsteps before them. Footsteps of fathers. Footsteps of mothers. Footsteps of grandparents and generations long forgotten. Children rarely think of such things. They simply walk. One step after another. Dust beneath sandals. Morning air against their faces. The Nile beside them. And above it all, the rising sun slowly climbs into the sky, beginning another quiet day in the ancient world where childhood and work move together beneath the endless Egyptian light. Morning stretches gently across the land now, and the sun climbs a little higher above the horizon. The pale gold light that first touched the Nile has become brighter. It spreads over fields and roads and rooftops, slowly waking every corner of the village. The coolness of dawn still lingers, though only lightly now. It feels delicate, like something that will soon disappear. Children walking beside family members can feel the day changing little by little. Warmth touches their faces. The earth beneath their feet begins storing sunlight again. Dust rises softly around sandals. Dust was always there. Along roads. Along walls. Along fields. It settled against ankles and clothing. It followed people home after long days. Children grew up with it, barely noticing it at all. A young girl walks beside her older sister carrying a small woven basket. The basket is simple. Its fibers are worn smooth from many hands and many years of use. She carries it carefully with both hands. Ahead of them the road bends gently around a cluster of homes made from mud brick. Their walls shine beneath the growing sunlight, warm colors resting against the morning sky. The sisters walk quietly for a while. The younger child looks around as children often do. Toward a bird standing on a rooftop. Toward a dog sleeping beside a doorway. Toward sunlight spilling through narrow spaces between homes. Children notice so many little things. The world arrives in pieces for them. Small pieces. Interesting pieces. A sound. A shadow. A smell drifting through the air. Nearby, someone is already baking bread. Warm scents move slowly through the village. The smell drifts around corners and through open doorways. The young girl notices immediately. Her stomach notices too. Morning work feels easier when food waits nearby. Ahead, people continue filling the roads. Farmers walk toward fields carrying tools. Workers move toward workshops. Merchants prepare goods to carry from one place to another. Children move among them all, walking in smaller steps beside larger ones. Life flows around them. Steady. Familiar. Like the river itself. Many children in this world did not spend long hours wondering who they might become one day. Life often answered that question very early. Sometimes before they could even understand the question itself. A child born beside fishermen learned the river. A child born beside builders learned stone and tools. A child born beside farmers learned fields and soil. Days quietly placed knowledge into their hands. Season after season. Year after year. A young boy reaches the edge of a field with his father. Morning light stretches across dark earth, still carrying a little moisture from the river's water. Birds move through the sky above them. Their shadows pass quickly over the ground. The boy watches one bird for a few moments. It glides without effort. Higher. Farther. Across places beyond sight. Children often watched birds with quiet curiosity. Perhaps because birds seemed free in ways people were not. They moved where they wished, crossing over rivers and deserts and distant lands. The boy follows it with his eyes until it becomes very small. Then smaller still. Then gone. His father has already begun working. The boy looks down again. Work waits. Hands reach for familiar tools. Feet step onto familiar ground. Around them, other families move through the same rhythms they have known for generations. Voices drift through the fields. Water moves quietly through narrow channels. Wind touches growing plants. The sun rises a little higher. A little warmer. The day slowly unfolds once more. And beneath the widening Egyptian sky, children continue walking roads already worn smooth by countless lives before them, carrying small baskets and quiet thoughts into another familiar morning beside the patient waters of the Nile. The morning continues unfolding with the same slow and gentle rhythm that has carried countless days across the ancient land. The sun climbs steadily higher now, and the cool softness left by dawn begins slipping away little by little. Warmth settles over the fields. Warmth settles over the roads. Warmth settles across the walls of homes built from mud and straw and patient hands. Children feel the change before they think about it. They feel it against their faces. Against their shoulders. Against the tops of their heads beneath the growing sunlight. The day is becoming itself again. A young boy walks between narrow water channels beside a field where plants rise from dark soil. Water glides quietly beside him, moving through paths carefully cut into the earth. The Nile has traveled far before reaching this place. It has passed villages and riverbanks and boats and reeds. And now small parts of it spread across the land, feeding fields and feeding lives. The boy watches the water while he walks. Its surface catches pieces of morning light. Tiny ripples move outward whenever insects touch it. For a moment, he bends down. Only for a moment. His fingers reach toward the surface. Cool water brushes against his skin. The feeling lasts only a few seconds. But cool things often feel important on warm days. He lifts his hand and watches droplets slide slowly down his fingers. Then a voice calls gently from farther away. Not angry. Not sharp. Just calling him back. And so he stands and walks on. Childhood often moves this way. Small pauses. Small discoveries. Tiny moments gathered between responsibilities. Nearby, a young girl helps her mother carry grain from one place to another. Their footsteps move in a quiet rhythm together. Step. 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 Dust rises around their sandals. Morning light follows them across the road. The basket feels heavier after carrying it for a while. Children know this feeling very well. Even small weights grow larger with time. Arms become tired. Hands shift their grip. Shoulders begin to ache softly. Yet children learn to continue. Not because they wish for hardship. Not because they understand duty in grand ways. Simply because continuing often becomes part of everyday life. Nearby, other children move through the village and surrounding fields. Some carry bundles of reeds. Some carry clay jars. Some follow older brothers and sisters. Some help gather supplies. And some are still very small, walking close beside parents with curious eyes moving toward every sound and movement around them. Children always seem to find things to notice. A butterfly moving between plants. A bird resting along a rooftop. A lizard disappearing across warm stone. Tiny things. Ordinary things. Beautiful things that often go unseen by adults busy with work. Near one workshop, sunlight pours through openings and stretches across the floor in bright lines. Dust drifts through the beams of light. A child sitting nearby notices the dust moving slowly through the air. Upward. Downward. Turning gently. Floating almost like tiny stars. The child watches silently. For a little while the movement is enough. No words. No tasks. Just watching. Children have always known how to watch the world quietly. And perhaps this is one of the small gifts hidden inside childhood. The ability to become completely interested in simple things. Outside, voices rise and fall across the village. Workers call softly to one another. Animals move through the roads. Birds cross overhead. Life continues breathing around them all. The warmth of the day continues building. Slowly. Patiently. The coolness of early morning now feels distant. Soon the stronger heat will arrive. Soon people will begin searching for shade whenever they can find it. Soon the middle hours of the day will settle over the land. But for now, the morning still carries movement. Still carries energy. Still carries the feeling of hours stretching ahead. The Nile glides quietly beside the fields and villages, and children continue stepping through another day of ancient life, carrying familiar burdens beneath a sky that grows brighter with every passing moment. The morning gradually leans toward midday, and the sun climbs higher above the ancient world. The shadows that stretched long across the earth at dawn have become shorter now. They gather beneath walls and beneath trees and beneath the feet of people moving through the village. The day feels warmer. Not suddenly. Not all at once. Just slowly. The kind of change that settles so gently over the land that people barely notice it happening. Children notice with their bodies before they notice with their thoughts. Their foreheads grow warm. Their shoulders begin feeling heavier. The cool air from morning now feels far away, almost like something remembered from yesterday instead of only a few hours before. Still, life continues. It always continues. Near the fields, workers bend and rise beneath the growing sunlight. Water channels move quietly between rows of plants. Tiny insects dance above the water and disappear again. A young boy follows his father through one section of the field carrying a small bundle. His steps are slower now than they were earlier. Not very slow. Only a little slower. The bundle feels heavier than it did in the morning. Children learn this early. Objects do not change their weight. But tired arms do. The boy shifts the bundle from one side to the other. Then back again. Nearby, his father notices. He reaches out and takes part of the weight without saying much. No grand words. No long lessons. Only hands helping hands. Many quiet acts of care lived inside ordinary days. Children often remembered them without realizing they would. Years later perhaps they would forget the exact day. Forget the weather. Forget the road. But some part of them might still remember the feeling of someone helping carry something heavy. The field stretches around them beneath open sky. Plants move softly whenever wind passes over them. Birds cross above and cast small moving shadows across the earth. The boy looks up for a moment. Only for a moment. Then back down again. Nearby, Another child sits beside family members sorting grain beneath a woven shelter where a little shade offers relief from the sun. The shade is small, but small comforts often feel large on warm days. Hands move steadily. Grain shifts from basket to basket. Dust catches light drifting through the shelter. The child works quietly beside adults. Listening. Watching. Learning. Children in this world learned many things simply by remaining close. Close to parents. Close to older brothers and sisters. Close to hands that already understood the work. Life itself became the teacher. Days became the lessons. Time became the guide. Near the village roads, movement continues beneath growing heat. Merchants pass carrying goods. Workers walk between homes and workshops. Animals rest beside walls whenever they find shade. Dogs stretch and settle again. Goats stand quietly near cool places. Even birds seem slower now. Heat touches everything. A young girl pauses beside a clay water jar resting near a doorway. She lifts a small cup and drinks. Cool water moves across dry lips and down a tired throat. For a few seconds she closes her eyes. Only for a few seconds. The water feels gentle. Refreshing. Almost like a tiny moment of rest carried inside a cup. Children often remember simple comforts. Cool water. Shade. Bread after hunger. A breeze after heat. Small things become important when life itself moves through simple rhythms. The sky above remains wide and clear. Blue stretches endlessly overhead. The sun continues climbing. The land continues warming. And beneath that endless Egyptian sky, children continue moving through another ordinary day, stepping quietly between work and wonder beside the calm and patient waters of the Nile. The day slowly reaches its highest hours, and now the sun rests above the land with a bright and steady presence. Light spills across everything. Across fields. Across rooftops. Across roads covered with fine dust and countless footprints. The shadows have become small now. They gather close beneath people and walls, hiding in the narrow places where sunlight cannot reach. The warmth has grown stronger. Children feel it pressing gently against their skin. Their movements become slower without anyone asking them to slow down. Their feet seem heavier against the earth. Their shoulders feel the quiet work of the morning resting inside them. Ancient days often unfolded this way. Morning offered softness. Midday carried weight. And children learned these rhythms long before they ever thought about them. Near the Nile, fishermen continue their work beneath the bright sky. Boats move slowly through the water, drifting with a calm steadiness. A young child sits near the shore beside an older brother. The child's hands hold a small length of rope. Not much rope. Only enough for small fingers. Nearby, nets rest in soft piles against the floor of the boat. The smell of water fills the air. Wet reeds. River plants. Fresh fish. Children raised beside the Nile knew these scents from the earliest parts of memory. The river was never only water. It was sound. It was movement. It was work. It was life itself flowing beside them every day. The child looks down into the water. Sunlight dances across the surface in bright patterns that never stay still. Tiny fish move below. Then disappear. Then appear again. For a few moments the child forgets the rope entirely. Small hands become still. Eyes follow the moving shapes beneath the water. Children often become quiet this way. Something catches their attention. Something simple. And suddenly the world becomes very small and very large at the same time. Then an older voice speaks gently nearby. The child blinks, looks up, smiles softly, and remembers the rope once more. Nearby, in the village, warm air drifts through narrow roads between mud brick homes. The walls have begun holding the sun's heat now. Children carrying baskets move more slowly than before. A young girl walks beside her mother. The basket in her hands is not especially heavy, but she has carried it a long way. Long enough for arms to grow tired. Long enough for shoulders to ache softly. She changes hands. Then changes again. Children learn small ways to make difficult things easier. A different grip. A slower step. A brief pause beneath shade. Quiet little solutions gathered through ordinary days. Near a workshop, workers continue shaping clay and wood and stone. Inside, sunlight enters through small openings and spreads across the floor in narrow bands of brightness. Dust floats through the air, slowly turning, slowly drifting. A child sitting near the doorway watches the dust for a while. Watches the tiny shapes moving through the light. Perhaps no one notices. Children often spend time inside little moments unnoticed by others. A drifting feather. An insect climbing a wall. A shadow moving across the floor. Simple things can hold attention for long stretches of time. Outside, life continues breathing across the village. Voices rise and fall. Footsteps come and go. Animals rest in shaded places. Palm leaves shift softly whenever a breeze arrives from the river. And though work continues, though baskets are carried and fields tended and tools lifted, another feeling has begun arriving quietly. The promise of evening. Still far away. Still hidden beyond many hours. But already the day has begun its slow journey toward rest. Children do not always think about time in long ways. But tired bodies understand it. Tired bodies know that work eventually ends. That food eventually waits. That darkness eventually returns. And beyond the fields and roads and village walls, the Nile continues its endless journey, carrying sunlight and memory beside children whose small footsteps follow paths worn smooth through generations of quiet days. The afternoon begins to soften, even though the sun is still high above the land. There is a quiet shift that comes slowly, like the world is easing its breath after holding it for a long time. The light remains bright, but it no longer feels sharp in the same way. It becomes warmer in tone, less harsh on the eyes. And the heat, while still present, no longer feels like it is growing. It feels like it has reached its peak and is now simply resting over everything. Children sense this change in their bodies first. Not through thought, but through feeling. The heaviness that settled into their shoulders earlier does not grow further. It simply stays. The tiredness does not deepen. It just lingers quietly, like dust resting on cloth. Work continues in the fields. Work continues near the river. Work continues in workshops and homes. But the rhythm has changed slightly. Movements are still steady, but there is a sense of patience in them now. As if everyone understands that the day is slowly moving toward its final stretch. A young boy walks beside his father across a field that has begun to shimmer under the heat. The air above the ground wavers gently, making the distance seem softer, almost dreamlike. The boy wipes his forehead with the back of his hand. His fingers leave faint traces of dust. He does not speak much. Most children in these moments did not speak much. There was no need for many words beneath the strong sun. Only steps. Only movement. Only the quiet understanding that the work continues until it is time for it to stop. Nearby, a group of children rest briefly beneath a thin patch of shade beside a wall. Their backs lean against warm stone. Their breathing slows. One child closes their eyes for a short moment. Just a short moment. Even a small pause like this can feel like a gift during long days. The shade is not large. It does not cover much. But it is enough. Enough to make the air feel lighter. Enough to let tired arms relax for a few breaths. Then, slowly, they rise again. And continue. In the village, the smell of food begins returning once more. Not as strong as in the morning. Not yet. But it is there. A faint reminder carried through the air. Bread baking again. Grain being prepared again. Smoke rising gently from cooking fires that never fully stop in homes where many hands must be fed. Children notice the smell quickly. It changes something inside them. Tiredness does not disappear. But it becomes easier to carry. Because food means the day is moving forward. And evening is approaching, even if slowly. A young girl walks along a dusty road beside a clay wall where shadows are now slightly longer than they were at midday. She carries a small bundle in her arms. Her steps are slower than earlier in the day. But steadier now. There is a kind of rhythm in her walking. A quiet acceptance of the path she is on at this moment. She glances briefly toward the Nile in the distance. The river still shines beneath the sun, though its brightness has changed. It no longer looks like morning water. It looks like afternoon water. Heavier. Calmer. More settled. The Nile always changes with the sky above it. Yet it always remains the same river. Moving. Patient. Endless. Inside a workshop, tools begin to be set down one by one. Not all at once. Slowly. As each task reaches its natural pause. Hands rest for a moment. Shoulders loosen slightly. Dust continues drifting through the sunlight that falls into the room. A child sitting near the doorway watches the slow settling of the day. Watching people pause. Watching tools stop moving. Watching the world become quieter in small steps. Outside, birds begin shifting again. Their movements become more noticeable as heat begins to lose its strongest hold. A few fly across the sky in loose groups, casting small moving shadows over the ground below. Children glance upward when they pass. Then return to what they were doing. The sky is still wide. Still bright. But something in it has changed. The day is no longer rising. It is gently turning. Turning toward evening. And beneath that steady sky, children continue their quiet journey through another long and familiar day, moving with tired steps and gentle patience through the ancient world that holds them close beside the flowing waters of the Nile. The afternoon slowly begins to lose its strongest brightness, even though the sun is still high in the sky. The change is not sudden. It is not something that can be clearly seen in a single moment. It is more like a feeling that settles over the land, one soft layer at a time. The heat is still present, but it no longer feels like it is climbing. It feels steady now. Held in place. Resting across the earth like a familiar weight that everyone has learned to carry. Children continue their work, though their bodies now move with a quieter rhythm. The energy of morning has long faded. What remains is endurance. Simple endurance. The kind that carries people from one hour to the next without asking too many questions. A young boy walks beside his father along the edge of a field where tall plants move gently in the warm air. Their shadows are short beneath them. Almost directly under their feet. The boy adjusts the bundle in his arms again. It feels different now than it did earlier. Not heavier in truth, but more noticeable, as if the day itself has slowly filled it with time. He looks toward the horizon for a moment. The sky is still bright, still wide, still open in every direction. But something in its color has begun to soften. A slight warmth is fading into a deeper tone. The boy does not name it. He only feels it. Near the river, boats continue to drift slowly along the Nile's steady current. The water carries the light of the afternoon in a quiet shimmer, broken into small moving patterns that never stay the same. Fishermen pull nets with practiced hands. Children nearby help carry the catch toward shore. Their movements are familiar now. Repeated many times. So many times that the body remembers before the mind needs to think. A child stands near the water's edge holding a small basket. Fish inside shift softly against one another. The child watches the river for a moment longer. Watching the movement beneath the surface. Watching light scatter and reform with every ripple. Then a voice calls gently from behind. Not urgent. Not sharp. Just a reminder. And the child turns away from the water and returns to the task waiting on land. Life in this world rarely paused for long. It flowed forward like the river itself. Steady. Continuous. Unbroken. In the village, the roads are still active, but the movement has changed. It is less about beginning tasks and more about completing them. People move toward finishing what was started earlier in the day. Work is being gathered. Not rushed. Not hurried. Just gathered. Like the final steps of a long walk. Children walking through the streets notice how the light now falls at a slightly different angle against the walls. Shadows stretch a little farther than before. Not long yet, but longer than they were at midday. A young girl walks beside her mother carrying a woven basket that feels lighter now that much of its load has been used. Her steps are slower, more measured. She passes a wall where warm stone still holds the memory of sunlight from earlier hours. The surface feels almost alive with heat. She does not stop. But she notices it. Children always notice small changes in the world around them. Even when they do not speak about them. Even when they continue walking. Nearby, in a shaded corner of a workshop, a group of workers sit briefly during a pause in labor. Tools rest beside them. Dust floats slowly in the beams of light coming through the open spaces above. No one speaks much. There is no need. Rest itself becomes a kind of language. A shared understanding that the day has reached a point where stillness is allowed, even if only for a short time. A child sits quietly near the doorway watching the street outside. People pass slowly now. Their movements less sharp than earlier in the day. The air feels slightly different too. A faint softness beginning to replace the strong heat. The promise of evening is closer now. Not yet fully arrived. But no longer distant. And beyond the fields and homes and dusty roads, the Nile continues its endless journey through the land, reflecting the changing sky above it while children and families move together through the quiet, familiar rhythm of another day slowly turning toward rest. The afternoon begins to loosen its grip, and the land slowly starts to change again. It is not a sudden change. It never is in this ancient rhythm of days. Instead, it comes in quiet steps, as if the world is gently lowering its voice. The light remains strong, but it is no longer sharp. It feels softer now against the earth. The heat still rests over the fields, but it no longer grows heavier. It simply stays, like something that has settled into place and will soon begin to fade. Children feel this change in ways they cannot always explain. Their bodies sense it before their thoughts do. The tiredness in their arms no longer deepens. The weight in their legs no longer increases. The day has reached a kind of balance between labor and release. A young boy walks beside his father across a narrow path between fields. The ground beneath them is warm from hours of sunlight, and small stones shift slightly under each step. The boy carries a bundle that feels familiar now. Something he has adjusted many times throughout the day. His grip is steady, though his hands are tired. He does not complain. There is no space in the rhythm of this day for many complaints. Only movement. Only continuation. He looks ahead toward the distant edge of the fields where the Nile can still be seen glimmering faintly through heat and light. The river never disappears completely from view in this land. It remains present in memory even when it is not visible. Nearby, workers continue finishing tasks that began hours earlier. Some gather tools. Some carry baskets toward storage places. Some walk slowly toward shaded areas where rest becomes possible for a short while. The village begins to shift its focus. Not fully toward night yet, but away from the peak of the day. A transition is happening. Quiet. Gradual. Natural. A young girl walking through the village notices how the shadows have changed again. They are no longer short and tight beneath the sun. They are beginning to stretch outward. Across walls. Across roads. Across the sides of homes. The shadows are becoming longer, as if the world itself is slowly reaching out toward evening. She pauses for a moment beside a clay wall. Not because she is told to. Just because her body feels the need for a brief pause. She rests her hand against the warm surface. It still holds the heat of the day. But even that heat feels different now. Less rising. More lingering. She lifts her hand after a moment and continues walking. The village around her continues its steady movement. People returning. Tasks being completed. Work slowly closing like a book that will open again tomorrow. Near the river, fishermen begin preparing to bring their boats closer to shore. The water reflects the afternoon sky in a softer way now, as if the brightness itself has begun to quiet. Children helping along the riverbank carry nets and small containers. Their movements are slower than earlier, but still practiced. Still familiar. One child pauses briefly at the water's edge. Looking down. The Nile moves steadily beneath them. Unchanging in its motion, but constantly changing in its surface. Light shifts across it with every ripple. The child watches this for a moment longer than necessary. Then turns away. Even in simple tasks, there are moments of quiet observation. Moments that linger slightly longer than expected. Inside the village, the smell of cooking food grows stronger again. Smoke rises in thin lines from different homes. The scent of bread and grain and warm fire spreads through the air. It mixes with the smell of dust and earth and river wind. Children notice this change immediately. Food signals the turning of the day. A soft reminder that rest is approaching. A young boy walking beside his mother slows his steps slightly as the smell reaches him. He does not speak, but his body responds. Tiredness becomes easier to carry when food is near. The village continues its slow movement toward evening. Not yet there, but no longer far. And above all of it, the sun begins its gentle descent, preparing the land for the long quiet hours ahead, while the Nile flows endlessly beside fields and homes where children and families move together through another familiar day written in dust, light, and time. The light of late afternoon spreads across the land with a softer touch now, as if the sun has begun to lower its voice. The brightness is still present, still wide and golden, but it no longer feels as sharp as before. It rests instead of pressing. Across the fields, the long shadows of plants and people stretch farther than they have all day. They reach across the soil in slow, gentle lines, marking the steady passage of time. Children notice these changes without needing to understand them. They simply feel the day moving forward. A young boy walks beside his father along a familiar path that curves between fields and small irrigation channels. The earth beneath their feet is warm, but no longer growing hotter. It holds the memory of sunlight now instead of its rising strength. The boy's steps are slower than in the morning. Not weak. Just tired in a way that feels natural after a long day. His hands still hold a small bundle, though he shifts it carefully from time to time. The weight is the same as it was earlier, but his arms have grown accustomed to it. The body learns endurance quietly, without instruction. His father walks beside him. Steady. Unchanging. A presence that does not hurry even as the day moves toward its end. They do not speak much. Words are often unnecessary after a day filled with labor. The silence between them feels familiar. Comfortable in its own way. Ahead, the Nile begins to appear more clearly as they move toward open ground. The water reflects the afternoon sky in long, shimmering stretches of gold and pale blue. Small ripples move across the surface, carrying light with them as they shift. The river feels different now than it did in the morning. Softer. Quieter. As if it too is preparing for the evening. Near the riverbanks, fishermen continue the slow work of returning boats to shore. Wooden frames scrape gently against wet earth. Nets are gathered in loose piles. Water drips steadily from woven lines back into the river. Children helping along the shore move carefully now, their energy lower than earlier in the day. One child pauses for a moment, looking at the water as it slips back into itself. The Nile never stops moving. Even when everything else grows still. Even when the village slows down. Even when the sky begins to change. It continues forward, as it always has. And as it always will. In the village, more and more people begin turning toward home. The roads that were busy earlier now carry a different kind of movement. Not urgency. Not speed. Only return. Return from fields. Return from workshops. Return from riverbanks. Return from wherever the day has carried them. A young girl walks slowly beside her mother. The basket she carries feels lighter now, not because it has changed, but because the day is nearing its end. Her shoulders are tired, but steady. Her eyes glance toward the changing sky. The sunlight has begun to deepen in color. The bright gold of midday is slowly turning warmer, more orange, more gentle against the walls of homes. Shadows stretch longer across the road now, reaching toward each other like quiet lines drawing the village toward evening. She does not stop. But she notices everything. Children often notice more at the end of the day. As if their minds, like their bodies, become quieter and more observant when tired. Near a workshop, tools are being placed down one by one. Not all at once. Slowly. As each task reaches its natural pause. Dust still floats in the air, catching the last strong beams of sunlight that enter through the open spaces. Inside, there is a sense of easing. Not completion yet. But preparation for rest. A child sits near the doorway again, watching the outside world change. People move more slowly now. Animals settle near shaded places. The village feels like it is exhaling after a long breath held since morning. And beyond the fields and homes and narrow roads, the Nile continues its endless movement beneath the shifting sky, reflecting the softening colors of late afternoon while children and families quietly return toward the warmth of evening and the slow, familiar rest that waits at the end of another ancient day. The afternoon begins to give way more clearly now, as the sun lowers its place in the sky with a slow and steady descent. The light that once filled every corner of the land so brightly has started to soften again, losing its sharp edges and becoming warmer, quieter, more forgiving. Across ancient Egypt, the world feels like it is gently shifting its weight. Fields no longer feel like places of constant effort alone. Roads no longer feel as long beneath tired feet. Even the air seems to change its tone, carrying a cooler hint from the direction of the river. Children feel this change deeply, even if they do not think about it in words. A young boy walks beside his father along a narrow path that leads back toward the village. Their footsteps are slower now, shaped by the long hours behind them. The bundle in the boy's hands is still there, still familiar, still carried with the same careful grip, but it feels different now. Not heavier. Not lighter. Just present. Like the rest of the day itself. The father walks slightly ahead, steady and unhurried. His movements do not rush toward the end of the day, but neither do they resist it. He simply continues, as he has always continued, through mornings and afternoons and the steady flow of time. The boy looks toward the horizon. The Nile is closer now. It stretches across the land like a quiet ribbon of movement and light. The surface reflects the sky in softer tones now, as the strong brightness of midday fades into something more gentle. The river never stops. Even as the land around it slows. Even as people turn toward their homes. Even as the sun prepares to leave the sky. It continues its patient journey, carrying life through the same paths it has followed for generations. Near the water's edge, fishermen are almost finished with their work. Boats are drawn closer to shore. Nets hang in heavy, wet folds. Water drips steadily back into the river, each drop returning to the same endless flow. Children helping along the bank move with quieter steps now. Their energy has thinned into something softer, something closer to calm than effort. One child stands for a moment longer than the rest, watching the river move past. The water looks almost like it is breathing. In. And out. In. And out. Always moving. Always returning. Then the child turns away and follows the others toward the village. Inside the village, the shift toward evening becomes more visible with every passing moment. The roads are no longer filled with the busy rhythm of work. Instead, they carry a slow stream of people returning from fields, workshops, and riverbanks. Voices are softer now. Not silent, but gentler. A young girl walks beside her mother, the woven basket resting lightly in her hands. Her arms are tired, but the weight no longer feels like something new. It feels familiar now, like something that has been carried for a long time. She glances toward the mud brick homes along the road. Their walls are glowing with the warm colors of late afternoon. Soft gold. Deep orange. Shadows stretching long across the ground. The village feels different at this hour. Not because it has changed completely, but because it is beginning to slow. To settle. To prepare. Smoke rises again from cooking fires, thin and steady, drifting upward into the softening sky. The smell of bread and grain and warm earth moves through the air, reaching children before they even arrive at their homes. It is a familiar smell. A comforting one. It means the day is almost complete. A boy walking beside his mother quickens his steps slightly at the scent, though only for a moment. His tired body still moves slowly, but something inside him responds to the thought of rest and food waiting ahead. Evening is not fully here yet. But it is close enough to feel. Close enough to shape the way people move. Close enough to soften the long edges of the day. Near the workshops, tools are now mostly still. Dust continues to drift in the fading light, but the sounds of labor have quieted. A child sits near the doorway, watching the outside world grow warmer in color and slower in motion. People pass by on their way home. Animals settle. The air feels less heavy than before, as if the day itself is beginning to exhale. And beyond the village, the Nile flows on beneath the changing sky, reflecting the final light of afternoon in quiet ripples while children and families move together through the last steps of a long and familiar day, slowly approaching the peaceful stillness of evening. The sun lowers further now, and the land begins to take on the quiet colors of evening. The bright heat of the day softens into something warmer, gentler, almost calm in its touch. Light spreads across the fields in long, fading lines, as if the world itself is slowly being covered in a soft blanket of gold and shadow. The village feels different again. Not suddenly, but clearly enough to notice. The busiest hours are now behind. What remains is the slow return. The slow settling. The slow easing of everything that has been held in motion since morning. Children walking along the roads feel it in their steps. Their bodies are tired now in a deeper way, the kind that comes after a full day lived completely. Dust clings to their feet and clothes. Their arms feel lighter now, not because strength has returned, but because effort is no longer being added to it. A young boy walks beside his father, the path leading them closer to the heart of the village. The Nile is still visible behind them in parts, glowing softly under the slanted light. It no longer shines with the brightness of midday. Instead, it holds a quiet glow, like something resting peacefully after long movement. The boy does not speak. Neither does his father. There is no need. The day has already spoken enough. Ahead, more people appear on the road, all moving in the same direction. Returning. Gathering back into homes. The village begins to feel fuller again, not with work, but with presence. With people coming back together. The sounds of evening slowly grow. Soft voices. The faint rustle of baskets being set down. Footsteps slowing near doorways. Smoke rising more steadily now from cooking fires scattered across the village. The scent of food becomes stronger again. Bread baking. Grain heating. Simple meals prepared after long hours of labor. Children notice the smell before anything else. It pulls them gently forward. Not with urgency, but with comfort. A young girl walks beside her mother, the basket now nearly empty. Her arms feel tired in a quiet, steady way. She adjusts her grip once more, though it hardly matters now. The work of carrying is nearly finished for today. Her eyes drip toward the sky. The sun is lower now, close to the horizon. The light has changed completely. The sharp brightness of the morning is gone. In its place is a soft, glowing warmth that spreads across everything it touches. The village walls. The dusty roads. The tops of palm trees swaying gently in the evening air. Even the river, in the distance, seems calmer now. As if it too is resting. Near the riverbank, the last of the fishing boats are secured. Nets are gathered and carried away. The water continues its endless motion, but the work around it slows to a close. Children who helped earlier now walk back through the village paths. Their steps are slower than before, but their bodies feel the familiar relief of the day nearing its end. One child glances back once toward the Nile. The river still moves. Always moving. Even when everything else pauses. Even when the world grows quiet, even when the sky begins to darken. Inside the village, more homes begin filling with people again. Doorways open and close. Families gather in familiar spaces. The sounds of cooking and soft conversation blend into a steady evening rhythm. A child sits near a doorway, resting against a warm wall that still holds the memory of sunlight. People pass by slowly. Some carrying food. Some simply walking. Some already settling inside for the night. The child watches without needing to move. Everything feels slower now. Softer. As if the entire world has begun lowering itself toward rest. Above, the sky deepens in color, moving from warm orange into deeper shades of evening. The first faint stars begin to appear, barely visible at first, then slowly growing clearer as light continues to fade. And beyond the village, the Nile flows quietly beneath this changing sky, carrying the last reflections of the sun along its surface while children and families return fully to their homes, stepping gently into the growing calm of night that waits just beyond the final light of day. The last light of the day rests gently over the land, as if it no longer wishes to shine brightly, but only to remain for a little while before leaving. The sky above ancient Egypt has softened into deep, quiet colors. Warm gold has faded into calm orange, and now even that begins to dissolve into the slow rise of night. The village no longer moves with the energy of daytime. It breathes differently now. Slower. Quieter. More complete in its stillness. Doors close softly. Footsteps grow fewer. Voices fade into low, familiar tones inside warm homes made of mud brick and woven reed. The smell of evening food lingers in the air, drifting gently between houses and down narrow roads. Inside one small home, a child lies beside family members on woven mats. The day rests inside their body now. In their tired arms. In their dust-covered feet. In their slow, steady breathing. There is no more work waiting. No more roads to walk. No more fields beneath the sun. Only stillness. Only rest. Outside, the Nile continues moving in its endless path. It does not hurry. It does not pause. It simply flows, as it always has, through darkness and light, through day and night, through every generation that has lived beside it. The water reflects what remains of the fading sky. A few last traces of light drift across its surface, trembling softly before disappearing into deeper shadow. Above, stars gather more clearly now. One by one. Then many. The night becomes full of them. Ancient, distant, and steady. The kind of light that does not change with time. A soft wind moves through the village. It passes over sleeping homes, over quiet streets, over fields now resting after a long day of labor. Palm leaves shift gently. Sand settles. The world grows still in layers, one silence at a time. Children sleep deeply now. Their dreams move quietly behind closed eyes. Dreams of water. Of fields. Of distant birds in wide skies. Of familiar hands and familiar places. Nothing urgent. Nothing sharp. Only the gentle drifting of thoughts carried into sleep. The land of ancient Egypt rests beneath the night, held in calm darkness and soft starlight. The river continues its patient journey, and the world feels still, steady, and endlessly ancient. And in that quiet vastness, everything finally becomes simple again. Breathing slows. Time softens. And the night holds the world gently until morning returns.